Welcome back, everyone, to NerdWide.com's weekly podcast titled Hero Cravings: The Multiverse, where we cover and break down all Marvel TV shows, Gotham, Black Lightning, and Krypton, episode by episode for you, the listener. As always, I'm your host, Tyler Haynes, with my good friend and co-host, the man himself, Chris Rivers.
It's happening, people.
Quick housekeeping before we get into this. It's not a big episode, but it was all right. Episode of Multiverse. Quick housekeeping. Don't forget to share, rate, and review this podcast on whatever podcasting service you use. We're officially on YouTube and have been doing all of our episodes on there as well. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and check it out at youtube.com/nerdwide. Don't forget that Chris recaps a Blacklist and Blind Spot at purefound.com, so make sure you check out his weekly recaps there. And we also started last week our weekly polls that we put up on our Twitter and Facebook. Your answers to last week, which a lot of you people you voted, will be on. I'll give our answers to at the very end of the show, and our new question will be at the very end of the show as well. All that being said, we're going to get into our 30th official episode. I'm going to give you a quick recap of how this show goes down. Each week we go through all the Multiverse TV episodes in order as they air. We're going to bring you our thoughts and reactions to every single one of those episodes, and we're going to hit the floor walking with Krypton Episode 6 titled Civil Wars. I don't have a whole lot of notes for this episode because not really a whole lot happened, but we'll get to it. We found out that Strange knows who General Zod is and immediately tried killing him. He'll put a gun up to his chest and says, "Seg, if you trust me, we have to kill him. He is your grandson's greatest enemy." We find that Seg, obviously gives him pause because we just found out that it is Lyta's son. So we, gives him a little pause, and in this little time, General Zod tells Seg about Krypton's fate and how it's no more in 2 years. Seg did not like that. And we saw a rift start between Seg and Adam Strange. And then we tried to figure out why General Zod was back in the past. And, obviously we know Adam is back because he was under the assumption that Brainiac time traveled back to Krypton and is trying to, destroy Krypton because of Superman. But that wasn't the full story. We find out that from General Zod that Brainiac didn't come back to the past. He's already a part of Krypton's history. Zod states that Brainiac takes Kandor, and that is why Krypton blows up, because it destabilizes Krypton's core. So it's not Brainiac coming back to the past. Brainiac was already a part of this timeline. So that threw Adam through a loop, and it also is like, well, that makes sense because you didn't have the full story, Adam, and this is kind of all coming from this.
I was confused too when it first started and he called Zod Superman's greatest enemy. I'm sitting there thinking, anybody ever heard of Lex Luthor?
Right.
Like, that's
I guess this depends who you ask.
Maybe Doomsday.
Yeah. Considering Doomsday kills him. I mean, Darkseid, it's a good one. That's a good point. And then we see General Zod and Seg having a talk and discuss how, before I get to that, we see the rift between Seg and Adam Strange get even bigger. They tie him up and tie him to a pole because he believes General Zod more than he does Adam Strange. I'm like, dude, Adam Strange has been doing a lot of things for you and trying to protect your home. And General Zod, just because he's Lyta's daughter and told you just a little bit more of the truth, is the reason you're picking him over him. But whatever. So they tie him up, and so General Zod, Lyta, and Seg go try to find the door that houses the weapon that's going to stop Brainiac. That we saw, I think it was 2 episodes ago, with this random group. We have no idea who it is. Or that was the last episode, actually. And so we see General Zod and Seg having a talk, and they're discussing how close Zod was and Seg's son were, and also admitting how much he dislikes Superman. And I think the biggest thing with Seg and General Zod that Seg and Adam Strange didn't have is because he's being straightforward with him. He's like, it's no, I'm not going to lie to you. I can't stand, your grandson. He says, but me and your father, or me and your son used to be really close. We're best friends and everything like that. So it was I think it was kind of cool to see that. and to see how, like, we're seeing a different part of General Zod we usually don't see, which I think is a lot of what the show is.
Yeah.
We see that Darren Vex states that his thing is he wants to talk to the 8 other cities on Kandor. So they're not the. So this is like we've been all about Kandor, right? And now to find out we've got 8 other cities going around. I just because
Where are they?
You're right. We see like this wasteland. I don't know, man. I just and we'll discuss it more here at the very end of the show with the ratings. But plot holes makes no sense, but we'll get there. We see Jaina murder a lieutenant for questioning what her and her other commander were doing. That because he was going to out pretty much the Vex's plans and everything strange going around, which was a big character development because the House of Zod is all about honor, and we see Jaina murder someone underneath her, and obviously bothered her. But I don't know. We'll see what comes of this. But we see that the random people we saw last episode take Strange and release him. Right before they killed him, though, he says, wait, I know where they are. They're going for the weapon or the vault or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then we see the Zods, plural, Lyta Zod, General Zod, and Seg. They find the secret door, and then they try to blow it up, and the door didn't even get a scratch on it. But upon further investigation, we see that the symbol that is on the door, which I thought it was the House of El, if you look closer, and I did look closer, you see it's the House of El and the House of Zod symbol like fused together, which looked pretty cool, if I'm not going to lie. And then so they figured out, well, it's the blood of our houses is what opens the door. So was it General Zod cut his hand, or was it Lyta that cut her hand? It doesn't matter that much.
It was Zod, I believe.
Yeah. So like they, I thought that was kind of cool. Like he cut
General
his.
Zod.
Yeah. So General Zod and Seg cut their hands, and their blood opens the door. And what is behind door number 1, Chris? Well, I'm gonna tell you. You get the one, the only Doomsday.
Dun dun dun.
I don't know, man. Why are we introducing Doomsday?
I don't know, because they didn't really say.
Yeah.
They just...
a big fight breaks out between this random group and then Lyta, Zod, and Seg. Because they were sworn to protect the door, obviously got opened up. We found out last episode because of the House of El. It's the reason they did this. And then we see Seg telling General Zod that they're not going to use Doomsday. We're going to find a different way. Because I think even General Zod was like, whoa. Did not see that coming. But, and then at the very end of this episode, we see Brainiac Sentry takes control of the majority of the S.H.I.E.L.D that were trying to kill the voice of Rao. Which, how they didn't see this coming. Because, like, did you notice? I don't know how well you paid attention as much as to the Sagittari and then the voice of Rao storylines, but his voice changed and got very robotic-like in a lot of the conversations. But it ended with him trying to take control of the Sagittari, and that was how the episode ended. But the biggest thing here that I want to talk about is the early numbers. 0.2 rating, which is pretty steady, but 0.59 million viewers, which is down 0.13, and you even have the note, when do we hit bottom for this show?
It's just plummeting every week. I mean, it's cable, but these numbers are low for sci-fi shows. So.
Yeah, and I like this show, and then the problem I was trying to mention earlier is a lot of these plot holes we know nothing about. Black Zero, still unexplained.
Well, and we spoke about it briefly during the pre-show, where it was on sci-fi.com for one of their... It was actually the episode recap of... Was it episode 4 or 3, where Seg gets kidnapped by Zod, by General Zod, and they wrote it up their episode recapper on sci-fi.com, the network's website, wrote up this group as Black Zero.
But that but
But
he General Zod said he's not.
right, in the episode they deny it. So, and like you said, supposedly there are 8 other cities on Krypton. Don't know where they're at
It's
because
yeah.
we've gotten an overview of the planet, and it's this one city.
And then the rest of the outworld, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
Um, Doomsday. What's going on with him? Why
Why
is
bring
he?
in, like, if you're bringing in General Zod, which is again one of Superman's greatest enemies? Why are you bringing in another of Superman's greatest enemies?
And you don't have Superman around to fight him.
Yeah, so I don't.
It's like I don't know if they're reaching. I don't know, and that's part of the trouble. You can't really look at this show and say, well, this is where they're going.
Right.
They're just taking a while to get there, but we're going to get a good payoff. We don't know if we're going to get a good payoff. There's 4 episodes left, and nothing is resolved.
Mm-mm.
Everything's still up in the air, and I wonder if they got the rights to do the show, and maybe they were wanting 18 episodes. And then they were told no 10, and they've
Yeah.
just kind of scrambled to put stuff. I don't know what's going on, but it's frustrating to watch. For all the talk that we had when it was on about Inhumans and how people didn't really care for it, I was much more into it than I am this show.
Yeah. And to me, it's not really like a Marvel versus DC thing, but I feel like I just don't understand what they're doing. I don't feel like. I don't know. Like the Inhumans, I enjoyed more too. Like the Krypton, don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed the season, but everything's was a lot more explained on Inhumans.
Yeah. You have to give people answers as you go. And, I remember back when Lost was on, that became one of the things people didn't like about the show is even when they would give you an answer, they would give you 5 more questions to go with it. And people got tired of it. And
Right.
this seems like every week we get 3, 4 more questions, and we don't always get an answer each week, at least not to a big question.
Yeah.
And it's like, when is this going to stop? Like, you've got 4 episodes left to tie everything up. So either those last 3 or 4 episodes are going to be amazing, or they're going to fall flat.
Yeah. And especially like with them, not being based off. I mean, they're loosely based off of the comic books, and to them to throw all this in here with no answers, I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't
because
know,
like
man.
now they've got time to give an answer to this, but so Zod travels back in time.
Right. Brainiac is absolute. He's not traveling back in time. He's
Right.
normal.
Adam Strange has traveled back in time.
Right.
We know Doomsday now was on Krypton. Apparently, someone had managed to trap him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when apparently he gets loose, apparently he leaves Krypton somehow before the planet explodes.
Right, because he eventually makes his way to Superman.
Or is the planet explosion what frees Doomsday?
Like it destabilizing and he gets off the planet somehow.
I mean, well, we don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Here we are. And
it's
I really hope we get answers to it because we might not get those answers.
right.
If they cancel the show, we're not going to get that answer because
I,
they're not going to put
I,
it in there.
I honestly don't see it coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not me wishing that it won't. I'd like to see him come back and explain a bunch of this stuff. The ratings, they're still dropping. If they had evened out, if they'd leveled off,
Yeah.
then you could say, okay, maybe you've got something. If you get a hot episode, people tune in the next week and maybe it builds up a little bit. They're still dropping.
Mm.
And the DVR numbers have been slightly better than the overnights,
But
but the ones
even
that we
those are
have,
dropping.
but they're dropping every week like a rock.
That's not good, dude.
And I think if sci-fi wanted to get into the superhero genre when they had the chance, when NBC got rid of Constantine, Sci-Fi should have picked it up.
Yeah.
Constantine would have done really well on that
Oh,
network.
that would have done like yeah. Even thinking about that, that'd have been really well done for them.
But this is just not hitting home with people.
Um, Next episode is titled Transformation.
Maybe the show's going to transform into something.
Take different approaches, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh man. And then our next show, which Chris, I don't know about you, but I'm extremely excited to talk about, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode 519, titled Option 2. Had some questions going into this. Our one and only listener question we had kind of goes into this. Of course, this is also the week that Marvel's Avengers Infinity War comes out. So keep that in mind with some things, which we'll talk a little bit. I'm not spoiling anything. I know, Chris, you haven't seen it,
Right.
but we'll get into it later. No spoilers for Avengers Infinity War, by the way.
I'm hoping to check it out Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah,
So
it's good. It's like I said in the pre-show, it's my favorite MCU movie. Period. But let's talk Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. here. We see that the team are working together to make a plan to destroy the Gravitonium. Their plan is to, once they get the Zephyr space ready, they're going to spin around the orbit of Earth and chuck it to the sun and destroy it. I feel like you can't destroy Gravitonium, but they tried it. Well, they want to try it.
I want to see them try it because I'm curious what it would do if Gravitonium went into the sun.
Right. I feel like I feel like that would destroy the universe, but whatever.
I mean, well, the sun is the means to all life on Earth.
Yeah.
So isn't throwing something like that into the sun a little dangerous?
Yeah, but I think they're reaching for straws here, to try and stop the Gravitonium. With the team has a lot of arguing going on due to everything that happened last week with essentially the 2 to 3 teams splitting up and then coming back together for the first time, and we see an agent. What would you say his name was again? Agent
Davis.
Ming?
Oh, you're talking about Kim.
Kim, that's what it is. Agent Kim. I think he talked over to Davis. Is this normal? They said the aliens, yes. The arguing, no.
Yeah,
I thought that was really nice to see that.
it was. Yeah.
And then we see Agent May and Quake are talking to themselves. They're planning to save Coulson's life whether he wants it or not. Which, of course, we know, but the team doesn't know. From future Yo-Yo, they said you have to let him die, or else this loop is going to continue. So we see that start to become a thing. We finally see Deke and Fitzsimmons talking about if they break the loop and what it means for the future and for the future of Deke. I know we've talked about it on the show. What happens if they stop the loop? And Simmons theorizes, apparently she even made like a paper on it, that if they do stop the loop, Deke will blink out of existence. So,
right,
we obviously got that answer.
Just like Back to the Future.
Bing, bada boom. We see before Talbot got knocked out last episode, when he had Robin, he shared the location of the lighthouse, and it pans out over the lighthouse, and we see a giant alien spaceship. We'll find out it's the Confederacy, if you cannot tell. We got a nice little callback of the old school agent who made the lighthouse. I think
Patrick Warburton is the actor.
And I was glad to see him back. I was hoping that was in it, but apparently he noticed the extinction level event about to start. And he says, if you'll go over to the time frame, well, the main terminal, you can select your options. And the first option was, what was the first option? Natural disaster.
Yeah.
2, the nuclear disaster, and Coulson picks 2 right off the bat. And it said, number 3, alien invasion.
Yeah.
And Agent May said, Coulson, you always listen to all the options. He goes, sorry, I got excited. And that was hilarious, I felt like. We see that the aliens that were in the ship invade the lighthouse using the same teleporting device that we see Hale using in Hydra. We see that Deke actually knows these aliens that are invading the lighthouse, and they're they're marauders and scavengers. They suck out and turn off the lights because they have natural night vision, and humans don't.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, we
What,
flash
what?
over to
Real quick,
yeah. Go ahead.
I loved that little scene with Deke because you can tell he was calling upon his time growing up in the lighthouse.
Yeah.
He knew exactly where to go to get out of the way and stay alive.
Yep.
He
And it's
dove.
and his fear too. Like you can see the fear in his face.
Yeah. Well, he gets into this vent, and then a scene or two later, we see him come out the other one of the other ducks right into the room where everybody else is.
Yeah. So he obviously knows how to handle this group of aliens. And he
Yeah.
said like you give them what they want and clean up the bodies afterwards.
Right.
I was like, oh, that's rough. And then we see Quake and the Candyman, which the Candyman is what they call him, is um, Mac's old friend Tony Kane is his name, or Jake Busey is the real actor's name, and they're discussing what they found about the program that had Deathlock and everything because they were trying to find something to save Coulson's life, and they call out the what was the program name that they said? The Centipede,
Yeah.
which is in very, very, very season one, because it gave people powers in season one. So, if you needed more evidence that this is potentially the last season, another callback to the original season absolutely works. But here's the thing, like I said at the beginning of this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Avengers Infinity War because they mentioned Avengers Infinity War in this episode. The Candyman states to Quake, he says, have you been seeing all this weird stuff happening in New York? And she says, no, I'm trying to keep away from. She goes, I have enough alien issues to deal with right now. So that's not giving anything away. If you watch any of the trailers, you see New York City. But that's a nice callback to that. And so for those of you who haven't seen Infinity War, obviously we've had questions about it, and we've actually our listener mail goes into that question, and we'll explain it a little bit more then, or I will since Chris, you haven't seen it more. But that aside, we see that Talbot ices Simmons and puts himself into the gravitonium machine, and he goes 100%. He goes full 100% instead of where Ruby went to 8% with the gravitonium. And then like one of the ending scenes is Talbot comes out of it, and the Marauders or Scavengers, whatever you want to call them, are all in the control room, and our team is fighting for their life, trying to keep them at bay. And he just blasts down a door and closes his fist, and all I think it was 4 or 5 of the Marauders crunch into a ball.
Yeah, it was exactly the same kind of thing we saw Ruby do to
Strucker's head.
Von Strucker's head accidentally.
Oh, right.
And of course he did it on purpose, but
Yeah,
he was able to do it from a distance because he had absorbed all the gravity.
Dude, and that was brutal. Even to the point that Coulson had to look away for a minute. He all the bodies just crunched into a ball. And of course
it wasn't quick.
No,
It was
no, it was
limb
not.
by limb they were breaking up into a ball.
Yeah, and you could hear it. I mean, there was no blood, but you could hear the bones cracking. And it was excellent. And then Talbot walks up to Coulson because Coulson's laying on the ground. And he says, "See, I told you I could fix this." And then him and Coulson just kind of float to the surface. So that was, I don't know where they're going, but Talbot's name now, or I don't know if it's a hero or villain because I haven't really looked much into it. But excuse me, Talbot's new name is Graviton, which is in the comic books.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to dig into it much more. But speaking of digging, the very last scene is Quake digging up her mother. Because with her conversation with the Candyman, they said they have the majority of the ingredients for this centipede serum, but they needed one thing, and the Candyman said, I've looked for everything. And he goes, I can't find the name of the thing on the map. And she looks at it, she goes, it's not a name, it's a who. And then we see her digging up her mother's grave.
Yeah. She was trying to get to something that would grant super healing ability to anyone using the centipede serum.
So I'm kind of curious to what it is. And then before we, talk about ratings in the next episode, there was a couple of moments in here that didn't really make sense as far as where's this plot line going. We see Agent Davis and Piper talking, and it was about his scar over his eye. And because I think she said about the story, Agent Piper did, she said she couldn't believe he came out of something with only one scar. And he said he hadn't told anyone because they wouldn't care or it wouldn't really matter. At first, I thought it was like just a play on that it's about this main team and nobody else really matters to the story. But then later on, we see Piper turn to Davis. Well, Yo-Yo said, "Get behind me, I can't die." And Piper turns to Davis and says, "Yeah, neither can he." Or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think she says that makes two of you.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So, I mean, are we going to get more with this plot line? Or is this just, what is this about?
I don't know. It's very, very weird. I've never seen Davis. I mean, obviously he's been on this show.
Yeah.
I can't recall him being in any of the movies.
Me either. I don't think he was either.
So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see if they do anything with it, or if they, I mean, for all we know, they put it in there just so folks like us would waste time talking about it.
I am curious to see if we do get a little bit more backstory, because I just thought his scar, because I didn't remember him much from the earlier seasons, so I just thought that was normal. So whatever happened, but I guess not. We're trying to make something else canon. And, we don't have, this is episode 19, and the episode list, I believe, for the show is, there's only 22 episodes. So, Chris, we're 3 away for this one.
Yeah, and well, you'll get to the next episode title. It's interesting. I'm really curious to see how that next episode's going to work.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and run to it. Early numbers, 0.4 rating, which is steady. 1.63 million viewers, which is down 0.3. And then the next episode is titled "The One Who Will Save Us All." Either it's Coulson or it's Graviton. That's my prediction of who it's talking about, at least.
I mean, if it's someone that's going to save everybody, then that would mean that the loop is broken. So, could it be that Coulson sacrifices himself?
Because he knows that May and...
Because that was something that came up, right? Yo-Yo, during the episode, told them what she knew.
Yeah, because everyone's asking where Quake was.
Yeah, because she said she said what I did to Ruby didn't change anything.
Yeah.
Because it's all happening. My future self warned me that whatever we do, we shouldn't try and save Coulson.
And she was like, that was kind of like emotional for her too, because she said, I didn't want to tell you because it was family, and I was just trying to make everything not happen like that. She goes, I'm sorry, sir. I see you as family, so. I'm curious to see what we get in the next 3 weeks, and it's crazy because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is such, like, this season. I'm not including the whole first half of it, but like this last half has been so damn good, Chris.
It has been, yeah.
And we don't know if it's getting renewed or not. And of course, like we've said multiple episodes, the writers have said it could end the show if, like, the series, the finale could either be a series or a season. They said it can be either.
There have been rumors, I think we mentioned it on an episode, that it was going to get renewed for a 6th season, but we haven't heard anything official. There was one more moment from this episode that I really, really liked.
What's that?
It was just a little comic moment right near the end where after Coulson and Talbot float up toward the surface, I guess because the air made its way in, Patrick Warburton's hologram comes back up and says, the air quality has been tested. The surface is safe to ascend to.
he said, congratulations, you survived.
Right.
I love stuff like that because everyone else is, because like we left the team with like everyone's jaw on the floor from Graviton. So That was funny. I'm with you. That's something that Marvel does really well. And of course, with the mention of what the MCU is, it's canon. And I wonder if, with the ending of Infinity War, if that's what they're waiting on as well for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I'll just leave it there before we get to our question. But Chris, before we get to anything, we have to answer: who gets the terrible honor of Douche Canoe of the Week this week?
Seg.
That's the first time.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man.
Adam Strange has been with you since his first episode, and sorry that sound of me was the flipping through our notes. I was just confirming that this is his first time, but Adam Strange has been with you the whole show, and you just flip on him because he omitted one thing.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, dude.
That doesn't make everything he's told them is checked out.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that at all.
No. Now, Chris, and well, of course, that goes into the whole plot stuff with what Krypton's doing right now. Who gets the glorious honor of Hero of the Week this week?
We went with Talbot.
Yeah.
Or Graviton, however you want to.
Yeah, however you want to, whatever character you want to say he is. Yeah, that's the way he sacrificed himself to gain these powers because of everything he's been doing. Which it's good character development for Talbot. Of course, the subreddit of S.H.I.E.L.D. subreddit on Reddit.com is they all love Talbot. Just his character development. Period.
Adrian Pasdar has done such a great job with that character, and one way that I can tell it's been a great job from my perspective. I see when he walks on the screen, I'm like, okay, there's Talbot, instead of thinking, oh, there's Nathan Petrelli.
Yeah,
because like that's
I'm a big Nathan Petrelli fan myself.
Yeah, so. But I mean, it's very easy when there's a character like Nathan Petrelli to be typecast, to be thought of as that character whenever you show up on anything else. And he's managed to move beyond that character and do a great job with this one. So,
and he's on Supergirl rarely, but I'm with you every time I see him now. It's Talbot, not Nathan Petrelli.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, I'm pretty sure anybody who's been listening can guess either one of our favorite episodes, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you anyways. What was your favorite episode this week?
Gotham.
Oh, man, that was a good one.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., of course.
Yeah, that was mine. I mean, like I said earlier, like the last half of this season has been so good. It's everything we've loved about S.H.I.E.L.D. and then some, So that's my reasoning. I loved it. Krypton just wasn't there. No. Now, Chris, we have our listener mail since we did have a light week, and we have one question, and we could talk about this for days, but we'll try to keep it short. I know you can only answer so much to this, but I'll try and fill in some blanks here. But Natalie R. writes in and says, do you think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will integrate what happens in Avengers Infinity War, or are we just ignoring it like we have been kind of doing with some of the movies recently? Now, they sent this question in, obviously, before Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was, this episode came out. We did get a mention of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, obviously some big things happen at the end of Infinity War, the movie.
Careful.
I'm being very, very, very careful with how I answer this question. So I do think it's going to integrate it, because you have to think of the past MCU movies like Captain America, Winter Soldier, with the outing of Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. That was a big thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Even with the first season, we had the New York incident. And then I think it was the second season with Thor 2, The Dark World, we see our agents cleaning up the library in London.
Right. Yeah.
So because we've the past couple of movies we haven't seen much of this TV show doing anything with, like how we have like the very beginning of the show. Um, but in Infinity War, we had a mention. Now, I'm not gonna say more. I'll wait until the show's ended and the majority of people have watched that, and we can revisit this question. But yeah, I think Agents of Shield's being integrated into the Infinity War, or vice versa, however you want to put it. Obviously, with the mention.
We spoke a little in the pre-show too about the next couple of Marvel movies. It's going to be really interesting to see if they acknowledge if they come back next season, either of those, because they take place in the past. Captain Marvel's set in the 90s.
Yeah, and Clark
I'm,
Gregg's in it, and the fact
yeah,
that this whole, which I know it's the whole show thing, but the whole 5 years we've had Agents of Shield, he has never once mentioned anything about Captain Marvel.
no.
So I'm very curious to see what that is, because him and Clark Gregg and Samuel L. Jackson are in Captain Marvel.
Now, that I think his not mentioning it, obviously they didn't know when they were going to be doing the
Yeah.
Captain Marvel
So
movie and what it
I'm
would
very lenient
contain.
on that kind of stuff.
But Coulson's also the type of person that doesn't reveal something if he doesn't have to, and he
Yeah.
doesn't call on someone for help unless he absolutely needs to. So it's not really a surprise that he would never have mentioned Captain Marvel to the team in a story context.
Yeah. Or he might have, and they might tie it in somehow, and we just have no idea about it.
Yeah, it's true.
So, I mean, considering the movie obviously hasn't been released yet, it won't be released till next year. Uh, but I think we are starting to see the MCU and this show combine more. So,
Uh-huh.
I'm curious with the next coming of weeks, how it pans out with Infinity War and this show. So,
Yeah.
but that was a great question, Natalie. Thanks for sending that in. Speaking of question and answers, we had a question up on our Twitter and Facebook, and it was from last week. Do you think the team will be able to save Coulson, or does he die? This was good, Chris. We had actually a lot of people answer this question more so than we did the Arrowverse answers. But 75% say they will save him, and 25% say Coulson dies. So that was our question from last week. And this week's question, which you can find on Monday around noon, is what do you think of the arrival of Doomsday of Krypton? Our answers for that one are going to be love it. Next answer is going to be excited to see Doomsday before Superman. Next answer is going to be hate it, and the next one is they're trying to do way too much.
Yeah, and again, anytime you answer on a poll that we put out there, you can always feel free to expound upon your answer by
Or
leaving
give
a
us a different
comment.
answer that not listed.
Sure.
So, got anything else for this week, Chris? We of course have Gotham returning next week, so which was very smart for them ratings wise and Fox wise, because Fox did the draft the whole time,
Yeah.
so it
Uh,
makes sense.
yeah, absolutely. Now I'm excited to see Gotham next week, see them return. Really want to get to next week's episode of Agents of Shield
Yeah,
and
that's
see.
the one that I'm most excited for.
Yeah,
So, well,
it's tough to be excited about Krypton right now.
yeah, maybe something will change next week, but I'm right there with you. It's nothing is holding anything up to Agents of Shield right now.
No,
But that might be because of me and the MCU person I am right now. Uh,
right.
but guys, that's it for this week. Make sure to review us on whatever podcasting service you use. And don't forget to share us around on all your favorite social media platforms. Like I said earlier, we do put our questions on Facebook and Twitter in poll form. You can follow our Nerdwide Twitter at nerd_wide. And you can follow me personally at Ty_Haynes. You can follow Mr. Rivers at MavTN7. If you have a different answer than what's in our polls, feel free to comment down. And if you do follow any of us, make sure you let us know where you come from and give us any feedback or anything else that you would want to see this show improve on. But As always, I'm your host, Tyler Haynes, with the man himself, Chris Rivers, and we cannot wait to share our thoughts with you next week.
Bye bye.